gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another edition of Live from Saturn. We'll be going over a book called Hyperion today. My name is Frank Perrine.
Cody Decker.
And I'm Duncan Gale. So yes, we will be going over Hyperion today by Dan Simmons. This book was written in 1990, won the Hugo Award, the prestigious science fiction award. And there's a lot going on in this book, but I think that the sort of easiest way to sort of get into it, I didn't really know much going into this book, but what I heard about it was that it's basically the Canterbury Tales in space.
Yes.
Basically. And so, of course, we're all familiar with the Canterbury Tales. We've read that entire book, right?
Canterbury Commons is a side quest in Fallout 3, yeah.
Okay. No, I'm kidding. Canterbury Tales is one of those things that maybe you've read one or two of the stories in school, but only people that study medieval literature have read the whole thing. But it's basically, it's about a bunch of pilgrims going to a holy site, and they tell stories. And in that case, it's basically just a bunch of short stories. But this is actually these are stories that are much more sort of connected to each other, I think, than in the Canterbury Tales. So that sort of makes it more than just a short story collection. But so basically, this is the story of 7 different characters, although really you only get 6 different stories, and they're all going to this holy site on the planet of Hyperion. The Time Tombs they're going to, it's called, which is related to the Church of the Shrike. And if I've already lost you, that's okay. Basically, we just talked about this
Just
book.
turn off the light.
Yeah. We just talked about this book called Alloy of Law, which was, some of us had problems with the way that it over-explained everything. This book maybe has the sort of opposite issue in that, but there's arguments that could be made in its favor, which is really, you're sort of dropped into this world,
Yes.
where there's all of this different stuff going on, and there's just references made to different things, and the references aren't really sort of explained.
No.
They're sort of slowly explained throughout eventually, but you're really sort of figuring out, okay, what exactly is going
Death
on.
wands.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Death wands. I'm
Death
3
wands?
books in.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know what a death wand is.
Okay.
They drop stuff like that, and even places to go, even things that they're doing, so we all went down to Shagnock,
Right.
and you're like, what the hell's Shagnock?
Yeah, exactly.
I did not like this book until I got to the end of the first character's back, midway, the last 3 quarters.
Now, some of the stories were good.
Yeah, of the first guy's story. That's when I was like, oh, I'm really interested now.
But the guy that got stuck on the planet?
That's the priest.
That was great.
At the end
Yeah,
of
that was
his
an awesome
story, I
story.
was like, okay, anything else, I'm in.
That was great.
So they know he knew how to open this story for me.
Yeah.
Right.
But
But then the very next story, you're like,
I'm like, oh, okay. Well, so the whole time I'm going I felt this way about the priest, but I know it pays off at the end. I'm like,
I did the same.
and there's I think this is a good book too for if you don't know what kind of book you like, because this guy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Each character is a different genre.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you get to be like, one is a cyberpunk noir.
Yeah.
Which is I didn't like it that much, but I thought it was very fun.
I thought that was one of the weakest.
Yeah.
But
if you were do I like if you know noir, it plays with that so much that it's a female detective noir, and she mentions as soon as he walked in my room, I knew he'd be trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
And she eyes him up.
He was incredibly attractive.
Playing with
It was
stuff
a
like
tall
that.
glass of water.
Yeah. And I started getting really interested because the other thing became how are these stories related at all? Because the 7 people are told we were allowed to go here. We each have our own reasons for it, and they have a vote. Do you guys want to talk about it or?
Well, it was interesting how a lot of it, at least what I got out of it, a lot of it was was also, questioning standard Christianity and belief.
Oh yeah.
I mean, heavy in
A
that.
lot of that. Yeah.
Like, what would be, well, are you really, was this made up by the Shriek, or was that, So that was interesting to me, how it was all related like that.
Which, by the way, the Shrike
The Shrike.
is a real animal. It's a
Oh,
bird.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a
that's
bird
true.
that impales its prey, which it looks like any bird you'd see on like your window, like chirping, and you'd be like, "Oh, it probably eats seeds." It looks like that, and it impales like lizards and bugs and stuff
Oh,
on
wow.
this like tree, and like keeps
Yeah.
them alive.
Really?
And it just picks at them.
Yeah, and that does sort of play into some stuff that happens.
Yeah.
Oh,
in
yeah.
the novel as well.
I thought it was
Yeah,
something
yeah.
about the Union.
It looks like marriage to me.
They're going on strike. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. So just like a little more kind of background information to sort of like orient you. I mean, so this novel basically takes place, probably like a couple of centuries into the future, where Earth no longer exists. Like Earth has been destroyed.
They call it the Great Mistake.
That's right, the Great Mistake, and it's like after the Hegera, I think it's called. That's like this. There's pre and post Hegera, and Hegera literally means something like Hajj or pilgrimage. It's related to the Muslim religion, and I'm not quite sure how it factors into this book exactly, but it's sort of how they kind of tell time. And so basically all of these different cultures still exist, even though Earth no longer exists. Like the Catholic Church still exists, stuff like that.
Yeah, they mentioned the priest is like one of the last like 300 Christians still left in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Because religions are dying out, kind of, and there's also a bunch of new ones popping up.
And even he's there. He has his own doubts and stuff. I mean, that one story was just, I loved it.
That priest,
yeah.
that journey with the priest story, where I went like, "Why are you telling?" And I went like, "Oh my god, what's going on?" And then just being
Yeah.
like, "Oh my!" Like when you find out everything that's happening.
Oh, yeah.
Like
When they
probably
talk about them going back and,
like that.
that was brutal.
That reveal. They open on one of the strongest stories for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I also, just a little fun thing, is there's a lot of sex scenes in this. Usually,
There are.
which is like the premise is
Yeah.
these people are telling this to the other people in the room.
Right.
So multiple, like 4 of them go like, yeah, and then we got undressed and we just went to town, and it's like there's just like 6 people just like sitting there
Well,
being like, so
also,
did you?
also a little baby that is reversing age.
Yeah,
Right.
with Merlin sickness.
With
yeah.
Merlin, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Merlin
you
syndrome,
need to
yeah.
watch your voices.
Yeah,
You're
there's-
talking about slamming and all that stuff.
yeah, ease on the slamming stories, pal.
Yeah.
I re-listened to the intro of this, and it has a very fun intro that I didn't appreciate the first time, which is it's a guy in like a 17th century like aesthetic on a ship hovering above the surface of this planet with a force field around it in a purple sky while lightning strikes around him, and he's playing piano. I think it's Beethoven or something, and dinosaurs are trying to get in and they're being repelled by the force field, and it just opens on that note. And
Yeah, it's actually Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C sharp.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah. which I can actually play on the piano. It's,
Can you?
It's sort of like of moderate difficulty. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's like Willy Wonka. Remember when the secret key?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Willy Wonka.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah. Rachmaninoff. Yeah.
That's the only reason I know who that is.
Yeah, it's actually Mozart in that context. Yeah, so that's the joke. Yeah,
And you didn't
And-
like this book? No, I'm just
right.
kidding.
And the
no. I mean, I liked a lot of the sort of like scholarly,
I thought this would be
academic
perfect.
references. Yeah, there was a lot of that in this book.
Oh, yeah.
Something that I like too is the like the visual aesthetic of this is it's like fantasy
Yeah.
in a sci-fi world. They have like
Yeah.
flying carpets, which is like a hover thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this race of people that like started living in space, and they've like this version of elves where it's just humans with like longer limbs, and they use like a tail thing, and
Yeah,
there's like
yeah.
butterfly wing people. And
That was kind of cool.
and
The different races that they would bring up.
yeah, which apparently this is going to have a movie with Bradley Cooper,
Yeah.
which
Being
is like
developed, yeah.
would not work in a movie.
This is, I don't
The
know.
third book would, but the first book would not work at all.
Oh, they can make a movie off off that book alone, and they should just leave it like that. Yeah, because I like this, and I like the aliens, and I liked all that. Like Even I even got used to how I was expected to know things that I didn't know.
Right.
Yeah, they would say names. I'm like, that means something. I can't wait for Duncan to explain to me who this guy is.
And I was gonna have to go with it.
And I would just go with it. I'm
Right,
like, okay, when they start explaining things, whatever, you know. And it did give a feel of kind of you need to follow. You need to just be with it.
Right.
Yeah, you're not going to know. Like almost like you were a visitor at that time and you didn't know anything.
Exactly.
And that's I don't know if the writer did that on purpose. I don't know, but that's how it made me feel. It made me feel like I was just a visitor in this whole thing, which that's kind of what it was designed to do, right? All the stories. So I was okay with it in the end.
Yeah. I mean, it was weird because, like, you know, I kept trying to like check in the back of the book. Is there like some sort of explanation of this world? But no, there isn't. I mean, unlike many other sci-fi books where there's like way too much information about stuff.
Yeah,
it's like this guy gives you nothing.
Nothing.
It's
There's
just,
Sad King Billy. I know he's there.
Yeah.
Now, all right. So before we go, we'll just go this like character by character because I think it's a pretty neat structure. Recommendation wise, I fell in love with it in the first story. And then I was that got me hooked enough. And there were like a couple other characters that I started really liking that I continued with the series. But until I got like midway through the pre-story, I was like, what even is this story?
Yeah.
I have no idea visually what's going on. I have no idea what any of this means. And I was like, I'll keep going, but I don't know what this is. The third book is a much more fun adventure story. If you've seen Escape from L.A., Escape from New York, it is almost beat for beat. Not beat, like the opening is similar to that, where it's a guy who's been sentenced to a crime, and you know he's doing his own thing. What the interesting thing is, in this sci-fi world, they figured out immortality. So people are hundreds of years away from each other, and age is like, I think some people just like, well, I almost revealed a spoiler. For the third
book. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was a great story.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I almost got it. You know that. So,
really
Duncan,
good.
how general like recommendations, thoughts? Who's this for?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are a lot of great sort of literary references in here. So definitely for English majors, you'll feel like your degree is paying off with a lot of stuff you read here. Yeah, the overall structure of the book with these 6 different stories that are certainly related to each other. I mean, they're not just disconnected. There's sort of strengths and weaknesses, I think, to doing things that way. And I mean, the weakness is that, some of these are probably going to be better than others, as we've already mentioned. There are some that we definitely think are better. I have a feeling, for me, there are 2 of these that are really strong, 2 that just are kind of so-so, and then 2 that are pretty forgettable. And it sounds like I'm the 2 that are strong. We're going to be in agreement about what those are.
Before we start, after you give your final thing, just go ahead and list off all the characters, and and just so the audience knows. And then Frank, how do you feel about this? Recommendations?
I feel like it's definitely not a book that you want to have audio and be washing dishes. You don't, because next thing you know, you're going to be in a totally different place.
You could be legitimately in the 17th century.
Right. And the crazy thing about it is that the first time when I started it, I ended up like that. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it through this book, dude. Because I'm already lost and I'm paying attention.
Oh yeah.
So that's going to happen, but after reading it all the way to the end, it's kind of almost designed that way. I know it sounds weird, but to me, it's designed that way. It's designed that you're kind of a stranger in this whole thing, looking at these different pictures that you kind of relate to, kind of not relate to. You kind of know what it is. And I kind of dug that, So, I mean, I would say yes. I would say yes. I mean, not a strong yes, because I think it's more me. But like you said, for English majors and people, they get a lot of little treats in there that will make them like it.
It should be mentioned there is one character whose whole thing is fight scene. So if you also like that, there is one character that is for you. Well, there's 2 characters that do fighting.
Yes.
So I mean that's the other. There's like each one's a different thing.
Yeah.
So one of these should be for you.
Yeah.
And maybe we could talk. We'll talk about that.
But the problem is which one?
Which one?
That's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, the book is definitely sort of uneven, inconsistent, but the strong parts are incredibly strong.
Oh yes, they are.
So
and
that's
If you find that it's not for you, check out book 3 because it is about it has one central protagonist on a very straightforward objective, and it's very fun and it's lighthearted and it is like the most adventurous tale I've ever witnessed.
And Cody does that to us all the time. Makes us jump on a landmine and then says, "But wait, until book 12."
Here's the thing. You can skip to book 3. You don't need to read it.
But you never tell us it until we're actually on the show.
I just got.
That's right.
Hey, wait till you read book 3.
Well,
why don't we just start on book 3?
We'll skip the Helldivers too. We don't need to read the first Helldivers. I know that now. Duncan, can you go ahead?
Go ahead.
We're gonna, and I'm just gonna drop a spoiler for the priest especially. We'll give you the setup, and then we'll drop the spoiler mark because I really think that is something you should experience yourself. But who are all the characters in this?
Okay, yeah. So first off, we have the priest, Father Lenar Hoyt, and his story mostly has to do with another priest who is was sort of his mentor. But yeah, so he's one of the characters. Then we have the soldier, Colonel Fedman Kassad, and then we have the poet, Martin Salinas. We have the scholar, Saul Weintraub. We have the detective, Braun Lamia. And then we have the consul, who is sort of the character that we begin with, and we kind of see things from his point of view at the outset of the story. And and the consul doesn't really have another name until I think it's revealed later. And then there's a seventh character, the captain, Het Mastine, who you don't actually hear a story from him, but he's another character. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I really love the priest story.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I grew to like Kassad, more so in the second book, but the way that was like the window into like what battles are centuries in the future, I really liked. Braun Lamia was like fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the scholar was a very funny, philosophical thing.
Yeah.
That's it. So if we're gonna name top 2, I would say the scholar and the priest.
Top 2, I'm kind of in agreement with that.
I am also in agreement with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh-oh. But then I'm going to
Priest and
change
scholar,
it to be the soldier and the detective. I'll change it like that so we can argue.
Well, I'm going to argue either way.
Oh, okay.
But
No, we can still find stuff to argue.
trust me, that's not going to stop us. No, in some ways, I mean, I like the detective. I like the way they switched it up to be a female aspect of it, right? I mean, and I kind of dug that it was kind of done like that. That whole, typical, he walked in as a cold glass of water.
Yeah.
10,000 stories in the city. I kind of liked it.
And I mean, it's like the opening of it, so I don't think this is spoilers, but he's like, I need you to investigate a murder.
Yeah.
And she's like, whose?
But wasn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, that part of it was just took you into a different place.
My murder. And I'm like, all right, I'm on board.
Yeah.
I'm like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That definitely hooks you at the outset. But
and the thing about the AI.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole how
The AI
it
stuff,
actually impacted that universe, that they were already doing things to, like man, like to, ensure themselves. I mean, I loved it.
Yeah, there's also this like multiple factions of AI that have their own thing going on too. That is some characters some characters deal with directly, and some don't even know it's like a thing going on.
Yes.
Because there's.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I think that there are definitely interesting things in every one of the stories, but yeah, to just sort of tip my own hand, yeah, I think that the priest and the scholar, yeah, those are the strongest. The poet and the consul, those are mid-level, and then I would say that the soldier and the detective stories are probably the weakest.
Okay, I'll switch up the bottom 2 tiers on that.
Okay.
I like the soldier and the detective more than the scholar, or not the scholar, the dad and the consul. I don't even remember.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
Yeah.
It's weird because you end up start comparing them to other things. So when they were talking about the AI, I thought of what was the book that we listened to where
Sea of Rest,
Yeah, there was multiple stories.
iRobot.
I
Oh,
Robot.
iRobot. Yeah,
That
yeah.
part where the AI just said, "Yeah, I'm done talking to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I'm just done talking to man. You guys are idiots."
And
Yeah,
basically,
I-
there's three factions, and some went, and most of them are like, I don't want to deal with people.
Yeah.
But some are like, we should kill all the people,
Yeah.
right? And some are like, no, just leave them alone.
Right.
I just don't
like
bother.
in this book, the AI is building a secondary Earth.
Yeah.
That was
Oh, yeah.
way cool because I'm like,
Was
dude,
cool.
you should be like hating Earth, right? You should be hating that, but you're trying to recreate it. There were a lot of cool things about that story.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the priest.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is because this is like a mystery. What genre does this go into? It's definitely mystery.
Anthropological mystery.
All right,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean, I definitely got some echoes of Clan of the Cave Bear
Yeah.
in this story as well. Yeah, when he's like first encountering the tribe and like seeing their customs and everything, and
Yeah.
kinda
And I
trying to
like the
fit
way
in.
the writer kind of cheesily made it. You couldn't get out, you know,
Right.
Because you're like, why don't you just walk out, dude?
Yeah.
You know, but you had fire forest and everything like that. That was kind of cool.
Tesla trees and the flame forests of
Yeah.
it's like if it was a fantasy world, you say the flame forest of Garthol.
Yes.
But he just said it's the flame forest and the Tesla trees. I'm like, I have no idea what any of this is, which is why I'm still I'm still like on a rocky start with the priest, like up until this point.
Yeah, and so we have to give some kind of basis. So the priest is trying to get to this, encounters this tribe of, I think they're 12.
The 70.
Yeah,
Three
so-
score and 10.
Yeah, so that would be 70.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
so-
I don't like when they have fancy. Just say
Yeah,
70.
Yeah, dude.
I don't like half a dozen, baker's dozen,
That's right, yeah.
6.
Because then it changes my whole mindset. My mindset, I'm only seeing 10.
Yeah, you heard 10.
And I'm like going, what? I don't get it. There's only 10 of them.
3 score. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. But so they're very like evolved, but evolved simplistically.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. All
Because they're
of the,
not devolved.
That's
They're
right.
actually human beings that actually settled there,
yeah.
that evolved into this.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a story where it's like you're with him, like what's going on? Because the premise is the priest is reading another priest's like origin,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
his
right.
diary.
Yeah, this guy's like diary. Yeah, and the sort of beginning of this story definitely gave me vibes of like Heart of Darkness a little bit, where he's like going into this unknown wilderness place, and then once he gets there and he encounters the tribe, everybody in the tribe looks the same basically, and they all have like bald heads, and he can't tell which are male and which are female. There's like so they're completely undifferentiated that way, so there's something very odd about that.
And they killed his friend or
Yep.
coworker. I don't know what priests call each other. Do they call each other coworkers? But they didn't kill him. And he asked why, and the answers they give, it's funny because if you know, it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know. He's like, he doesn't know if they're just stupid.
The
Right.
final
But
death.
yeah, it's like he experienced the final death. He's like, why didn't I? And like, you can't experience the final death because you're of the cruciform, and he has the
Right.
cross on his.
Right.
So it's like, oh, are they like a tribe of Christians?
Right.
What does any of that mean?
Yeah. And it's almost like goes into that theory that people think that, that aliens created us. And not God.
Right,
So aliens created us, and then we created God,
Yeah, and
which I find crazy.
the
Not crazy, but I find you don't believe in God because he's too crazy to
Well, you believe in
But I'll
aliens.
believe in an alien
that can
created me,
create
that
life.
created God.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's like
That's
yeah. I mean, that's that thing where it's like, oh yeah, God couldn't come out of nowhere and create the universe. Like, then what did happen? It's like, well, nothing came out of nowhere, and then the universe. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the same answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he'll ask them questions, and he's like, well, what would happen if I went to your temple, which he's not allowed to go to? And they're like,
Correct.
we would cut your throat open with sharpened rocks and watch you bleed out.
Right.
And then he's like, and then it goes like, and if you did it again, we'd have to cut you up again.
Right.
And that's like once you know what that means.
Right.
But then he's like, do they not know what death is?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing about this story that was so interesting, was how kind of like creepy it was. That it's this tribe that seems very kind of simple-minded. I mean, the guy talks about how they're like mentally undeveloped, and they have this very sort of matter-of-fact way about doing things. And there's nothing malicious about like the fact that they like killed this other guy that he was going there with, but they have clearly their own sorts of taboos and rules about things, and he's trying to like figure out what they are so that he doesn't get killed. But it's a very sort of like shaky.
Now, wasn't that so well thought out of?
Oh yeah.
After I heard that story, I really sat down and looked at, man, if I was a writer. That took a lot of thought process.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To think of a society of people that have evolved, but to fit what they were there for.
Right.
That was pretty cool. So all their
Definitely.
things, after I thought about it, everything they were saying, of course, it makes sense in their world. Which was pretty crazy.
Because this is. I don't know if I've ever been as much with the protagonist in a story, like in this one, where I'm right with I feel exactly the way the protagonist is. I'm like, what does that mean? What are they doing? Is this just like a dumb thing you got like lost in? Is this like a fallen colony and they ran out of like air or something? But they're also very knowledgeable about certain things. Also, they're speaking English. So what could have? And it's like in this future where people can live for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Timelines means it gets so Now, if this has got you intrigued, I'm gonna go ahead and say, check out the book.
Yeah, because we can't say anything more about that story.
Yeah. I mean, definitely the way that this story sort of develops and ends is.
And there's a huge part we can't even talk about.
Pretty mind blowing, and and it's probably best to just kind of leave things here.
I mean, to me, I'll be honest with you. To me, just for this story and how it actually wraps everything up in the book, I would recommend this book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
definitely.
that powerful to me. Where
just for this story.
Yeah,
I mean,
just for that story.
Yeah, this story. Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and just read a couple comments here from the Breeds non-spoiler review, another book that we had to do in 2 parts. I read the books. It's awesome. Highly recommend. Oh, I kind of thought that they read that because of us, but they may have just read that separately.
Oh, okay.
Some insatiable hunger for the Nope episode says, went with my bro and cousin. My cousin slept, and my bro was constantly ordering food. I was constantly ordering food. I was just there hoping this film was going to do something.
Nope.
Well,
nope. And from the Majestic 311, I think these two were funny. Rumham, classic listener. 311 was an inside job, and Daniel Morey says 311 the band.
Oh.
The question mark. So I thought that was fun. Will, by the way, longtime guy.
Well,
noticing a theme of fan recommendations for books on trains. We did the Majestic 311.
Yeah, that's true.
We were on a train for a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so leave a comment.
And in this book, there's kind of a train.
There is a train. Actually, yeah.
So we're all right along.
The Live from Saturn training arc continues.
Yes, yes.
All right.
So we're moving to the second story.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not going to talk about the spoilers for it?
Well, do you want to talk about the spoilers? Well, we might as well.
You know what? We'll talk about it right at the end.
I think we talk about all the spoilers because, I mean, it all kind of wraps up.
I'll agree with you there.
Okay,
yeah.
That makes sense.
I really like this, and this gave me the goodwill for the entire series. I'm going to finish it pretty soon. Who was the second story about?
Yeah, so the second story was the soldier story, the colonel.
This was very confusing.
It was.
Yeah,
it was definitely confusing. It begins with him in a simulation of the Battle of Agincourt, which was a
shout out,
which we were supposed to know about.
Exactly. Yeah. Which if you
that's the way the book is.
I thought it was trenches. I think.
Exactly. which if you're familiar with English history, or if you're familiar with like Shakespeare's Henry V, I mean that was a big battle in the 100 Years' War that I guess is important in military history.
Is that something real?
Yeah.
Oh, holy moly!
You could have been making that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of that. There's the famous speech that Henry V gives, like we happy few, we band of brothers, and it's
That's as much as I know.
yeah.
Oh, he got two.
That's as much as I know. Too.
Two famous phrases out of that one guy.
Yeah,
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, yeah. Yeah, he's going through simulations of previous wars as like a exercise, like hobby. He's a soldier in this far off future.
Yeah.
This is something that I really like, where they explain what his power armor does. I'm a huge fan of stuff like that, where it mentions it has like this crystal matrix,
Right.
and it has all these abilities to it. And when they show the fight scenes and how they describe that someone can punch so fast that it breaks the sound barrier,
that's pretty cool.
I'm like, visually, I love it. I didn't get what was going on for a good portion of this story, though.
Me neither.
Yeah, I mean, basically what this story is...
He went into sex scenes a lot, by the way. So these people are listening back. You can wrap this part up, man. You don't need to...
Yeah, this part is very violent and very sexy. Because basically this guy...
Yeah, we call it the Live from Saturn principle. I remembered violent was the first part, and I'm like, I shouldn't have said that.
Right. Well, that's okay. I mean, we don't want to promise our listeners anything that we can't follow up on. But yeah. So basically, this guy, he's going through a bunch of different simulations, and is, in this first simulation, he basically meets a woman who seduces him,
joining him in these simulations, and he thinks it's like an AI.
Yeah, well, I think first he thinks that it's like an actual other person that's in at his school, and so they like go off into the woods and they have sex, and it's great, and it's
fantastic.
He totally falls in love with her and stuff, and then when he gets out of the simulation, he's like trying to figure out. Yeah, who was this woman, and he tries to figure out what student.
It's like he's getting catfished.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's like a very sort of elaborate form of that, and then throughout his military career, he like keeps meeting this woman. Sometimes he meets her in like his dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that, like, I knew that I was dreaming, but this was realer than real life was. Like I was more sure that this was happening than I was of stuff in my real life, which is, another example of maybe a psychotic break going on. But he's saying it as though you're supposed to find him a reliable narrator, and everything like that. And eventually. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we care as much about spoilers in this story, but I mean,
this isn't as a mystery.
No.
So I think the ones that where there's an investigation or a mystery, we should keep that. Yeah. But when it's like fighting,
right,
because he doesn't find out what even is really going on.
I mean, he sort of finds out that this woman is actually some sort of manifestation of the Shrike, and she's been like manipulating him into this big intergalactic war, but it's not
because it seems like that is what I'll say.
Right, and so but I mean, this story is definitely not as clear in what's actually going on.
Yeah,
right.
It's because he's traveling in dreams and simulations, and possibly also just in person.
Right.
And I think it starts becoming vague if he's actually even in a simulation anymore, or if they are time traveling, because time is a feature of the Shrike.
Right.
So
I was loading the dishwasher at this time.
Yes. This
story, I'll be honest with you.
It is awesome if you know what's going on.
Yes.
And 3 books in, I kind of do.
Right.
They start time traveling instead of going into simulations. She is also I don't know if he's like one of the world's best soldiers.
Right.
And then she like has her own like Quicksilver like armor that forms around her.
I remember that.
And she has her own abilities. He can like when he places his hand flat, it like his armor like forms a blade. They don't have swords anymore. They have like this code of honor because the military took like a blow in public perception. So like the story does like things are kind of reverting a little bit society-wise as it goes on.
I might have to read that story again.
All right, what you need.
Because your explanation, I'm like, that sounds cool.
It is cool, but
I
again,
don't know if I got that.
a legitimate issue with this book is it is so hard to get what's going on.
Yeah.
If I think you need, like, some of these just need to be reread because visually, and like, you're much better at visual stuff than I am. You, like, imagination wise, I'm like, this is amazing.
No, I
and
agree.
on my third listen, I was able to appreciate it.
No, I agree. The what I put in my movie mind and my imagination in this book is awesome.
Mm-hmm. This is the first time you see the Shrike, and you see what it's even been doing.
Right.
There's a cult around it, the cult of death. No one knows what it's doing, and you see Colonel Kassad and this woman in like a space battle, just in their suits. And you see what the Shrike does is it moves so fast that it like just teleports and it just tears people apart, and it takes some of them it takes to other places, and no one knows what it does, or they do know actually. They take them to the Tree of Pain, which you'll find out what that is later.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the Colonel is given like some of those temporal abilities from the woman, who's like connected to the Shrike in a way that is unclear.
Yeah.
It is really cool when you find out in book 2.
Yeah.
But not in the. So that's when you get like he's able to punch so fast that it breaks the sound barrier. He like picks up a rock and like flicks it at someone, and they just explode from like the velocity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like from his slow down perspective, the Shrike is still teleporting around. It's moving that much faster than he is. And
right.
So this was like a good chapter for seeing like what's going on in space, what is this thing doing, and how much of a threat it is. This guy that spent like this whole thing as like this like super soldier wouldn't even stand a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think this needed more like descriptions in the
I
beginning.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because like I said, I'll be honest, I got to go back and
Yeah.
re-listen to that.
He's like my favorite character in like the first 2 books. But but that's like after book 2, I went back and I'm like, right, okay, yeah, that is cool. Because
Gotcha.
in the second book, I think they're a little more like, well, also I don't know, because I figured it out. I had to look up images.
So you figured it out by the 8th book.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're on the 1st.
Yeah. So
All right.
just check that out.
Yeah, I definitely.
Who's the third character?
Okay, so the third character is the poet, Martin Silenus. Yeah.
The funnest time of my life. Really? This poet, yeah.
Wow.
Not right now too, but the poet's story I thought was so fun, so like.
It was cool.
Oh, that wasn't one of your favorites?
No.
Oh, I thought it was.
No, it was good.
Oh.
I mean,
That's
the character is definitely drawn to be like, the sort of comic relief. He's like the most sort of irreverent guy. He's always saying, "What is this fucking shit going on?" I mean, he definitely curses all the time, and it's like, oh yeah, this guy's edgy because he curses. Yeah.
And his background. They go into his background. They don't go into how any of the technology or anything works, but they go into this guy's life a lot.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Like born into wealth, eventually he has like a stroke, and then he's only able to speak in 7 words,
Right.
which are all swear words.
Mm-hmm.
And he explains how he developed his own like language system because he breaks that down. He's like, so what I had available to me were like 3 verbs, 3 nouns, 2 adjectives.
Right.
And then he's able to communicate, and people are able to like eventually like figure out he says like, here's some swearing. This isn't a children's book, but he was like the shit fucking ass, and they go like, what he means to say is this, and
Right.
he's like explaining, and I thought that was like so fun. Like
That's pretty fun.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. Yeah, because this guy, he's actually. He actually grew up when Earth still existed, and then he got like cryogenically frozen, and then when he was like released from that, he had these limited abilities, and it turns out that he had to just work as like a ditch digger in this prison colony and stuff, and so he kind of got screwed over in that way. But he sort of like rebuilt his life from there. Yeah, after he. Yeah, had this like wealthy childhood, so that was interesting, and and actually, I mean, there's this one part, I'll just read, where it talks about him having this limited vocabulary, and he says, "How is it, you might ask, that someone can write fine verse with a vocabulary of only 9 right hemisphere words? The answer is that I use no words at all. Poetry is only secondarily about words. Primarily, it is about truth. I dealt with the Ding an sich, the thing in itself. That's from Kantian philosophy.
I knew that.
The substance behind the shadow, weaving powerful concepts, similes, and connections the way an engineer would race a skyscraper, with the whiskered alloy skeleton being constructed long before the glass and plastic and chrome aluminum appears. And slowly the words returned. So, yeah, basically he's talking about his process of writing poetry while he has this limited vocabulary. And so it turns out that, he writes this book called The Dying Earth. It becomes this, huge bestseller. And so that's how he gets out of this situation, basically. Yeah.
And if you like that snippet, this book's for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Just an example.
If you like casual references to Kantian philosophy, yeah.
Casual.
If you're a fan of casual Kantian... he became this celebrity, and then his status started to decline, and we need to make another book, and he's like, I don't want to do that book. It didn't sell,
right? And
there's people that still will fund him because they respect him enough, and it really goes into that whole it goes into getting a book published. So
right,
yeah, that's part. I was just like, oh, because I mean, there's other parts in the book where they're kind of on that whole people publishing and people writing books and stuff, and it was interesting.
Yeah. And this guy's thing is he is writing the Hyperion Cantos right now, which is the story of what is happening in this book.
Right.
And that is his... Because some of these people have, abilities. And then other people are just, there because they're trying to help someone or do something.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's sort of the thing, is you find out, towards the end what each one's role is. And this guy is, he's kind of telling the future, but while it's happening right now. So he's writing the present.
Right.
Which is what time is, a present.
Which will be the future.
Which is the future. Will be. I had a lot of fun with it. And I think on its own, it's a neat read about oh, what if a guy could only do that? And it's oh, and he does this.
And it was funny. There were things about just, like I said, with vocabulary and stuff that was funny. I mean, I like the character.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and this is the only story where you really get into the details of this character, Sad King Billy, because this guy has an actual relationship with Sad King Billy, who was basically this patron of the arts that, and he sort of creates this colony on Hyperion, with all of these different artists, so
and
that was interesting. Yeah.
The Shrike in his story is a Grendel type character that is
that's right, yeah,
that attacks them and takes Sad King Billy away to parts unknown.
Yeah, yeah.
And the poet is convinced once he finishes the Hyperion Cantos, he will be able to defeat the Shrike. But he also thinks the Shrike is his muse, and the only reason he can tell stories at all. Who's the next character?
Okay, the next story. I believe it is it's the scholar Saul Weintraub.
Probably my least favorite one. It's cool, and I liked the character, but I didn't need this much of him.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, I found this to be. I mean, really, maybe even more so than the priest story. Maybe the most sort of emotionally affecting story, because basically, before this guy even tells a story. I mean, you see him within the sort of frame story as this guy who has this infant child with him, and there's some reference made to, she got involved in the time tombs, but then you kind of get the full story here, which is that basically, Saul and his wife Sarai basically lived on this planet, and they have a child, Rachel. And if you're already getting some biblical references there, yes,
buckle yours.
Those are definitely there, and there will only be more from there. But he's basically, he's a professor at this university, and his daughter basically sort of follows in his footsteps, going on an academic path herself, and she becomes an archaeologist, and she. And so she's in her mid-20s, and she goes on this expedition to the time tombs, and basically this horrible accident happens, and she starts aging backwards. And it's interesting because I mean she on the one hand she's getting younger every day, and also every day that she wakes up, she retains no memory of what happened the previous day. So basically, like she's experiencing time in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
So she remembers everything that had happened up to that point in the past. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like hard to like even like explain what's going on here. But it's like, from our perspective, she doesn't remember what happened yesterday, but she remembers things from sort of the other side of time. And
Benjamin Button paradigm.
Paradigm.
It's sort of like the Benjamin Button thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like he's like shown a vision in his dream to like bring her to the Shrike.
Yeah.
He keeps hearing what he assumes is like God's voice or something.
Right, but it's different because
mm-hmm.
in his dream the God's telling him to sacrifice the kid.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So of course he doesn't want to do that, and then it turns out his wife's having the same dream.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it's different. That part was pretty interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
I like that part.
I like the conclusion to his thoughts because he's like, Abraham was told to sacrifice Isaac, which I feel like I have a different interpretation of that than everyone else about that scene, that clip from the Bible. I feel like it was God being like, don't obey like orders that you disagree with. Don't blindly follow orders if you know they're wrong.
Yeah.
I have my own conspiracy about why the church wouldn't want people to think like that.
Sure.
And at the end he like comes to his own conclusion about that story, which I thought was really fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And when he hears God basically ask him to sacrifice his child, I mean, he basically talks back and is like, "No, I'm not going to do that." I mean, and I mean, why is that the way that this is supposed to work? And I mean, so Saul Weintraub, he is a Jewish character, and this is sort of carrying on this tradition within Judaism of this sort of constant questioning of God and the sort of back and forth dialogue relationship. And so that's one interesting aspect of the story. Yeah, is that with the priest you had the sort of remnants of Catholicism. Here you have Judaism,
and it's through the whole book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to points where I was just like, okay, okay,
right.
But yeah, and he makes it work. He makes it work, and in this one, it was a great example of that.
Yeah.
And then in the end, you're like, okay, but you don't. That's not even who you think it is. I mean, yeah. So there's a lot of things that were cool about it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and
Oh no, just like seeing him go through like, because I heard that's like when you get older, you go through like your second childhood when like your kids like take care of you now, and he's going through his second parenting.
Yeah,
where now he has to
exactly.
to raise his daughter again, and like like at beginning it's like she is like aware of it, and eventually she stops even being aware that it's even happening to her.
Yeah.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of what made this story the most powerful for me was just how heartbreaking it is that they keep trying to find a cure for their daughter's condition and they just can't. And so, at first, they try to just like give her this like recording that she hears every morning to like orient her. Yes, this is what is going on with you, because she can never remember. But then at a certain point they give up on that and they're just like, no, we're just going to let her live her childhood in sort of blissful ignorance and and all of the sort of difficult things to explain. We're just going to kind of
the crazy thing is like everyone kind of knew what it was.
Right.
It was like weird, like you have
Merlin sickness.
You
got the Merlin sickness.
You got the Merlin.
You got the Merlins.
Yeah.
You got the Merlins.
And so
what you got, my boy? I got the Merlins.
Now Saul is so desperate that he's just like, maybe if I bring her to it, it'll reverse it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, originally it's kind of like he was bringing it to her for like the mom. There was the idea of them sacrificing themselves for the kid.
Like, no, it has to be the child.
Yeah.
And now it's like, and then he's like, at the rate that she's been de-aging, she has, maybe 3 days left before she just disappears.
Right.
And that's the one where like the whole group is like, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when they're like, oh, okay.
And I thought my story was good.
Yeah, the
Right,
guys
right.
like, yeah. The other guy's like, the other guy's crossing stuff out.
Yeah.
The other guy's like, oh yeah, well my daughter is True.
Yeah. So even the characters in this book acknowledge that this is the best story.
Thanks.
That's true.
You,
That's
you got
true.
me.
You did.
That's a fair joust, Duncan. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Who's after that?
Okay, so after that is the detective, and so that's a story that very much is in this kind of noir, cyber noir tradition.
Well, that's the kind of thing where it's weird because they go that classic aspect of it with this way futuristic kind of concept.
Oh, definitely.
And I think that's what intrigued me the most.
She's and she's investigating the murder of an android with the AI assembled personality of John Keats.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah. So the character is a cybrid. Okay. Yeah. So it's a robot that looks like a human being and is sort of is meant to mimic being a human being. And he has supposedly been murdered in that somebody temporarily disabled him and
Then they
stole
Information.
stole some of his information. Yeah.
His memory,
And-
10 minutes or something.
they upload their consciousness every 10 minutes, and he got killed.
Right.
He's like, so what? Something happened within 10 minutes that they didn't want me to know.
Right.
And then she's Bron Lamia is a heavy worlder, which is the trope for when someone's from a planet with stronger gravity. So she's just, and they mention it every now and then where she easily picks up bags and stuff.
Yeah, she
has
super strong. Yeah.
super strength and like a revolver. And then she's doing the fighting. I don't think the android. It is very much a gender reverse, like classic detective thing, where like the android doesn't do any fighting, and
Right,
she's doing.
right.
She's like going. She's getting in brawls and like Dick Tracy, all that stuff. Tracy Dick. Is what this one is.
Sure.
Yes.
I think that because I like if you're like, do I like detective noir? This is great. If you
Me personally, I liked it. I liked it because it brought up things like Johnny Mnemonic, AI, a lot of movies like that, and then it was it was interesting because it was AI against AI and there were all these things going on, and in the end, it always comes down to those movies and those writers that write about it. In the end, you create another intelligence that makes the same mistakes that we do.
Right.
And they're supposed to be smart. They're supposed to do whatever.
And they don't even
fall in the same problems that mankind has.
And now they have their own factions. Now they don't like each other. Now they have different ideologies. So,
right.
Do they reveal what happened to Earth when it was destroyed, or disappeared, or missing, or in this?
I don't think they reveal it exactly. Yeah, they sort of hint at some things.
Like a galactic highway.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, they opened a galactic
The Vogons,
highway.
yeah.
And then something about dolphins.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I like that. I thought it was a really I don't know. I thought it was an intelligent story. I really do, and I like the role reverse. I thought that was cool. I really do.
I thought it was. Yeah, I think this is the final. No, there's another sex scene after this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This would be good on
there is some.
on that X-Robot that show on HBO. where
Love,
it's-
Death, and Robots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This would make a great episode.
It's such. This is this is another one where it's like on its own would have been a fantastic short story.
Yeah.
Everything aside,
Yeah.
because it's just I think a lot of these stories are like just like fun, but they also bring up interesting ideas that make I'll like pause and be like, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that this story definitely had a lot of promise and a lot of interesting ideas that were brought up in it, but it didn't quite amount to much.
It didn't.
And the sort of ending, the way that it ended for me.
It didn't have so much of a moment at the end.
Yeah.
She's like,
yeah.
I'm trying to get him. I brought him, by the way.
Right,
he's like
right.
deactivated, but it's like he'll like it's a robot.
Right.
So,
right.
she was invited because of his connection with the AI, and it's like, oh, okay.
Right.
I don't even think she has an encounter with the Shrike.
Yeah. I guess that was what sort of threw me off about the story was that it's like, how does this connect to the rest of the stories and the kind of more overarching thing? It just wasn't as obvious to me. But,
okay, let's talk about the final story and then the reveal with the priest, and then we're gonna go like Planet Earth and disappear into the void. I really don't have much thoughts on. I thought it was like an interesting thing about like, it's like because he's space traveling. Every time he goes back to this planet, it's like the woman he meets is like older.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. So this is the console story. Yes, this is the last one. And
I thought it was really good. I just think that there was just too much packed into a simplistic story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
a lot. Cause I feel like the story is really short, but it's the same length as the other ones. That some of them could have been longer.
Right.
And this one could have. Because I'm like, I didn't really connect with this one.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah. So this is basically about a guy who's in the Navy or whatever the equivalent of the Navy is in this time period.
Space Force.
Space Force, and he basically falls in love with this woman on this kind of backwoods colony that's not really connected to the rest of the technology of the galaxy, and because of that, he keeps going back to this planet, and he doesn't age, but she does, and they do have kids together, and the reveal, I guess, eventually is that the consul is not actually telling a story about himself, but about his grandparents. And
which is like, okay. The reveal,
right,
is it's like, oh, okay,
okay,
yeah.
I was like, you could have said that at the beginning,
right?
That's not so much a reveal as it is context.
I'm not sure how much real payoff there is with that.
And you didn't even write things into it and build us up to that to make it like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's just like
I think it ended on the weakest note.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, it's already like, okay, well, once this is over, I'll be able to catch up. It ends on like this will do like a to be continued part 2.
Right.
Note 2, where it's like, oh, it didn't even have like a climax end. It is sort of, they're just like, all right, well, we're like 7 days away. Let's go.
Right.
And then book 2 is.
It's like you buying a car and then, your parents sitting you down. We got something to tell you. Your grandpa had a car.
Oh.
Really?
What? Since when?
Yeah, just wanted to let you know. Let us tell you this long, drawn out story.
Let's all right. Final note for the reveal of the priest.
Yes, that was a big one.
Just because we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Really, you should save that for yourself. But if you're like, I'm not going to read a book. What am I, a nerd? Mm-hmm. This is like, and this is like one of the most important stories in the whole series, as far as I know, too.
Yes.
The reason that they think he's of the cruciform is he discovers a giant cross in a cave when he sneaks into their temple.
Right.
Well, let's rewind a little bit. So, the people of this tribe, they pretty much talk about this crucifor, and he doesn't know what it is, but then he starts assuming. They go down to their place where they worship, like every day or every couple of days.
Yeah.
But he's not allowed to go. And they'll kill him.
Or they'll hold him down and cut his throat open with sharpened rocks.
Right. So he then sneaks down there, and then go ahead.
He finds this cross and he's like, oh my God, Christianity, it's a universal thing. Like this
has
is
been going on for millions and millions of years.
This is like I'm gonna be like the Pope. I don't know what.
And it's a wall of crystal crosses.
Yeah.
That are all glowing.
And when he goes to touch it, he sees the shrike in like a hallucination.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has a cross-shaped parasite in his body that he tries scratching out.
And it's a parasite.
Yeah.
Just let listeners know.
But it rebuilds your body.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives him regenerative power. That's why I love this. I'm like, oh my god, is this like the Suicide Squad? But like you find out each one.
Yeah.
You find out their like origin,
Right,
which it turned out it's not really that, but sometimes it is.
Well, he finds out his friend dies, one of the tribe, and he's gonna bury him, and they bring him. No, idiot! And they bring him back to the.
To the cross.
They bring him back to the. There's a shrine in this room, and he regenerates.
Yeah. And
Crazy.
he wants to leave. He wants to get it out of him. But if you leave this area around the cross, it gives you immense pain.
Yeah.
So you'll obey it, and that's how it does that. And every time it regenerates you, it also brings you back a little bit different.
Right.
And these people have died and been regenerated so much they're now in this state.
Right.
Right.
And his solution to get to break the will of this cross
Right.
is he crucifies himself to a Tesla tree for 400 years. No.
No.
7 years. 7 years.
Yeah,
7
it's
years.
not that
That's
long, but
yeah.
yeah.
Still a long time to be
7
crucified on
years.
a burning tree.
Yeah.
And it finally, it gives up.
Right.
And he
Right.
breaks its will. And that's when our priest finds him.
Yeah.
And then that little line where he noticed, where then he looks up at him and he's still alive.
Yeah.
And that's when the story ends. And then later on, the
Yeah.
consul's like, you left out a detail. And that's when our priest reveals he has a cross.
Yeah.
Right.
And he also has the cross of the other priest in
On
him.
his back.
And he is in twice as much pain as that guy,
Right.
constantly on
Yeah.
Ultramorph, which is my favorite sci-fi drug. Ultramorphine.
Ultramorph.
It's more so. And yeah, that was
And it was good. It
Yeah.
was really good.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I said,
That's the-
especially when you find out that he did this for 7 years.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because they go into the book in a little bit how he tries to get this thing off, and he's immense pain. And then when you find out what he did, just burning until he dies. And the cross will do things to keep you alive.
Right.
So it's trying to keep him alive. It was crazy.
Oh yeah.
Really
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
All right. I think that's
those
great.
are all of our thoughts. Do we have an
Yep.
outro?
Yeah, so if you're thinking of this book to read or listen to, just be aware, some of the stories you like, some of them you won't. And in the end, overall, I mean, it's a pretty cool book.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
cool.
Thumbs up.
I like it. Excelsior?
Excelsior.
All right.